Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Just briefly about Manika. We're in the business of helping banks build better user experiences in their digital banking. We work on two levels, both with data enrichment, so we connect to banks' backend systems and take their data, enrich them, make them available in various ways, and then on top of that data and APIs, we build front-end user experiences in partnership with banks. We were one of the pioneers of PFM in Europe, started 9 years ago, but we've come a long way since then, and I think more accurate description today is that we are providing building blocks for next generation digital banking, and we're innovation partners to banks. We work with many of the largest banks in Europe and beyond, including Santander in Spain, Commerzbank in Germany, Swedbank in Sweden, and yesterday we announced a major new partnership with UniCredit Group, along with an investment. And I want to draw on some of our experiences of working with some of the leading banks on kind of how we can take digital banking to the next level, how banks can evolve into more than a place to do banking, and drawing on some examples outside of banking that we think are most relevant. Yep, now it's working. So, I mean, as you know, fintech is exploding. Just a few years ago, investment in fintech was a few $100 million. Now it's 2.5 billion. Conference like this is now 10 times larger than it was just 10 years ago. And there are more kind of disruptive forces happening now than in decades with PSD2 and open banking, as all of you have heard ad nauseum at this conference and before. And it's not just fintechs that are rising, but also a lot of talk about what the big tech companies are doing. I'm going to take a few examples from there. So the question is, what should banks be doing? And of course, we've been talking about that a lot here in this conference. But I think one thing that's been very clear, I think one of the loudest messages here at Money 2020 this year, at least for me, was that there's no shortcut from the fact that you have to differentiate through user experience. The user experience really has to be good and superior. And if you don't want to risk disintermediation, and that risk has never been higher. Although there's a lot of talk, still most banking apps still more or less looks the same. There we have superimposed several. It's just a place to do banking transactions. You view your transactions, you check your balance, you pay your bills, and so on. It's fairly standardized. But some of them claim fairly good engagement. But when you probe deeper and ask, I mean, what are people then really doing? Why are they coming off into the app? And then the answer is just, yeah, they're checking their balance, they're moving money, and so on. But I think, but what banks really want is to be trusted financial advisors. And in a digital age, that means the app has to evolve from being a place to transact into more of a financial coach type application. And we're seeing different views on what that means. I'm going to present one here, which is drawing on experience from other tech leaders in other industries, which I think means it's good news for the banks. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Even the most innovative tech companies, they copy a lot of good ideas from others. So first, if we start with Facebook, I think this is probably the #1 app that draws our attention to the mobile phones. And where the heart of what they do is the feed, where you get news about your friends, and then they added media, and they've added a lot of things to it, and most of us, we go there now without thinking. Also there's the ability to interact. You comment, you like, you share, and so on. And with each interaction, it's more personalized. They have more information, and so on. And it learns. But there's big science behind this, and it's not just Facebook. It's any of the big social media like Pinterest or Snapchat or what have you. These are very conscious science of creating these habit-forming loops through engagement hooks. So if we look at the theory of habit has been evolving a lot last 10, 15 years. So it's there's some trigger, like a notification, and then you're sucked in, and then you check that out, but you see a bunch of other things, and you get some kind of reward, like likes on what you posted, or you discover some new story. It's just a cure for our everyday boredom, and before we know it, the trigger becomes internalized, and we start doing this without knowing. In some cases, it's good if we learn something valuable, but in too many cases, I think in social media, this is arguably not time well spent, or games like Pokemon Go or something like that. But definitely, this is something banks should be looking at. Yeah, we're suffering some, yeah, I think the batteries might be getting bad here. So how would a feed like Facebook's look in banking? I mean, that's exactly one thing that has inspired us, and one of the concepts we've worked on with many of our customers is a Facebook-like financial activity feed as the landing page for a digital bank. So very different from the usual user experience. And not like Facebook in the sense that it's super social and sharing everything about your money, but in the sense that it's telling the story of your finances as it unfolds, and there's always something new. The core of this feed are your transactions as they happen. As soon as you transact, it populates there. And then mixed in with the transactions, you have all sorts of interactions and bite-sized things. I agree wholeheartedly with most of the things that Personetics and BNP was talking about before, and we've learned that from our earlier PFM implementations, that it's the way to go is not to create budgeting or even savings goals or that kind of systems and expect people to come in and set their goals and objectives and so on. It's about bite-sized, really easy to consume, completely effortless interaction that still generates some value and time well spent. So the feed is just, you scroll through it, it tells you the story on a timeline, and you can interact with it. Everything here is interactable. You can see categorization. You can also drill down on every transaction and see statistics, your historical spending there in that category and so on. And all sorts of interesting things like some things are just fun and interesting, like this is your 10th time at Krusty Krab this year. There might be tailor-made offers. There could be kind of social hooks like telling you how many people are using this offer if you do something like that is proven to kind of increase the probability that user uses. So it's applying the same methods that Facebook is now used to create habit-forming loops to get people used to and addicted almost to kind of swiping this, checking out their spending, checking out their weekly report and so on. And this, over time, is arguably time well spent because people that are in touch with what's happening in their financial lives, they take better financial decisions. They probably spend more on the things they want to spend on. They're more likely to save for the things they want and so on. So, and also it helps the bank be positioned as a trusted financial advisor. And it acts as a gateway into different kinds of functionality. You're just checking your feed, but something you might see a product idea and a recommendation from the bank or anything interesting. If not, you just scroll further, but we make sure that it's always interesting and relevant. Your financial feed and story. So this was the first example, Facebook feed. Another area where we've taken a lot of inspiration is fitness apps. Like Strava, Runkeeper, Endomondo, or Fitbit. That I'm a runner, and to me it's like unthinkable now not to use one of these apps when I go out for a run. I want it in my statistics. I have my 50K goal to run 50K and so on, and I don't want that lost out and so on. And what I think these apps do really well, it's exactly this bite-sized, easy-to-consume things. Like instead of having big, large goals, like I want to say create a large college fund or I want to lose 20 kilos in 6 months, it would be just small attainable steps. I'm going to try to do 10,000 steps or go use the stairs more than the elevator every day, or I'm going to run 80 kilometers this month and so on. So they do that really well, and they keep you motivated. They tell you how much you're on track with this and so on. So data-driven insights and gamification using statistics. And they also do very smart community engagement, like there are league tables, how are you doing versus your coworkers, that appeals to some people, others not, but they do this really well. So there's a lot of inspiration from this. So an example here is this, how we've applied this in mobile banking is, so instead of budgeting or financial planning or the traditional PFM functionality, it's more now on the challenges, just focus on one thing. So in your feed, it pops up a challenge like maybe you want to kind of do less fast food this month or lower your grocery bills by 20% this month and nothing else. Just focus on one thing at a time. Or it could be savings. We have this concept of money monster that a lot of people like, where the monster is eating from your current account and putting it into savings. And if you choose to unleash it, that's kind of a challenge for you. And then that keeps popping up and it tells you how you're doing. So again, about improving financial health, financial behavior in small increments. And as an example, and in line with what was said here in the previous talk, that when we released this for the first time at the start of this year, we've seen now more than half of the users where we have this live are doing at least one challenge, and many are doing many challenges. While our kind of consistent metrics for users of budgeting, users of financial savings goals, we've never gotten that beyond 25%, even making it really simple and easy to use. So that really makes a difference. Same with the financial feed that you saw before, just playing around with it, deep diving in transactions, looking at statistics and that sort of thing, as opposed to a big reporting tool, has doubled the number of kind of daily logins, and just transaction deep dive, which doesn't exist in most banks or is very uninteresting with some long numbers or something, is like 40% of the time spent, and people are learning about this. So extremely high impact of engagement when you do it that way. You should still have the budgeting and financial planning tool for those who want to use it, but don't expect the majority to use it. But everyone wants an effortless feed with easy to consume things like this. A third example, closer to home, is looking at the challenger banks. They are now getting some real traction. I think Revolut is surpassing 2 million, and in their opening talk here on 2 days ago, I think the subtitle of the talk, Incumbents, Are You Afraid Now? And I think, but if you look at this, this is not really rocket science, at least not yet, that they are doing. These are fairly basic things. So very clean, simple user experience, and just focus on getting the basics right, like onboarding, starting the relationship, even with KYC and everything. I think they've really focused on making that as painless user experience as possible. You do it through video chatting. It's extremely easy. Also, just the real-time factor. You haven't put your card back after you use it with Revolut before you get a notification on your phone or a push notification about this transaction and so on. So the real-time factor really works, and I think that's evident for this. And some of these guys are getting cult-like following and customer loyalty, and this is not super difficult to emulate. And I think there are good lessons there to emulate. Fourth and last thing I wanted to talk about here is thinking outside the box. If you think about the evolution of Facebook, they started with a wall, then the feed, which is still the core, but then they've expanded. They added event planning, and then classified ads, and now they're doing peer-to-peer payments in Messenger and so on. And these are all things that make sense for Facebook. They start with a strong core, and then they incrementally add things that make sense. And that's exactly what banks should be doing. They should first get the basics right, but that's what we call banking beyond banking. Think mobile bank is not just a place to do banking, it's a financial coach, and then it means a lot more. Like, this is an example of this transaction deep dive. So this is a transaction. You swipe it or click it, and you see the category. You might see a related discount related to it. But but there are so many other things, interesting things you can do, and you can add new services and business models into the mobile bank. Like we are doing similar to what Netflix does to movies or Amazon with books, that we correlate different merchants across users, so that if you go to Byron in Covent Garden and if you shop at Whole Foods and do this and that, then you might be interested in these places because people that have a similar profile. So we help with discovery. And we can go to the Google Maps or Foursquare API and tell you how long walking distance these places are from your current locations and how they relate. And we can take it further. We can tell you if these places are trending based on how people are, what are the top 5 trending restaurants in Amsterdam and that sort of thing. We can talk about the average amount that people spend in these places. And we can have super tailored offers where people get only offers in places that you already shop in or similar places that want to compete for the business. So that's the bank creating an advertising ecosystem inside the mobile bank and competing with Facebook and Google on their turf instead of waiting for them to get regulated access to the data and do it themselves. Show on a map where the shop is and so on. So this is banking beyond banking, and there are a lot of interesting potential new business models that banks can pursue, but we highly recommend doing that inside the mobile banking application. There are very few examples of separate many app strategies working, although there can be good reasons to do that, because all of us have to do banking. There's no good reason not to go beyond that. So, very quick summary, 4 lessons here. Design an effective starting point. Don't make your mobile bank look like anyone else's, where the only thing changes is the balance of your accounts. Have something that is always personalized new, like a Facebook-like feed or some kind of insights. Number 2, use the best practice of the industry. Develop habit-forming engagement loops, but do it so people spend their time in a good way. 3, start with simple things that really work. Look at what's working at the neobanks, for example. Seamless onboarding, insights, real-time notifications, and so on. And then think outside the box. Move beyond banking. Think about what is the mobile bank more than just a place to do banking, like a financial coach, and then it could evolve further to a life coach. So that's all I have time for today, and that's what we mean with banking beyond banking. Thank you.